Max Otte, the chairman of the so-called Values Union, is retiring from politics. The CDU had withdrawn his membership rights because of his candidacy for the AfD. So, the chairman of the arch-conservative Values Union, Max Otte, wants to withdraw from active party politics after his candidacy for the office of federal president on an AfD right-wing ticket. The office of federal president or the candidacy is above the parties, and at the end of a political career, what should come after that, said the economist to the German press agency. So this candidacy also means my departure from the party political stage. Yeah, what an excuse. He's also resigning from the chairmanship of the so-called Values Union with immediate effect, he said. He wants to keep his membership in the association. As a consequence of his candidacy for the right-wing AfD, the CDU leadership had withdrawn his membership rights with immediate effect on Tuesday and initiated a procedure for his exclusion from the party. CDU General Secretary Paul Ziemiak justified the procedure by saying that it was an urgent and serious case of behavior that is seriously damaging to the party, that requires immediate intervention. Otte now categorically ruled out a move to another party. He was a scholarship holder from the CDU-affiliated Konrad Adenauer Foundation and had been a CDU member since 1991. Already in the late 1970s, as a teenager, he supported his father, who was also a member of the CDU, in the election campaign. He says, "The CDU is my political home. I will fight to stay in this home," he said. Yeah, no, we don't have a home for people like you. Otte called the candidacy for the office of federal president one of the most honorable tasks and highest honors in the country that one can be asked to do. Counter-candidates are traditionally used to draw attention to important issues in the country, he said, referring to federal President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, who should be able to secure a major majority for a second term at the Federal Assembly on February 13th. Otte said he shares the concern of the left-wing candidate and Mainz social doctor Gerhard Trabert, for whom the issue of poverty and impoverishment in the middle class is important. In addition, he, Otte, has repeatedly taken a stand against restrictions on democracy and fundamental rights in the wake of the corona pandemic. He turns against the brutalization of political discourse and increasing exclusion. Well, the brutalization are the ones that nominated you right now, mister. He ruled out accepting a paid mandate in politics in the future. He was often asked if he was aiming for a seat in the Bundestag and always declined. After this candidacy for the office of federal president, a return to party politics is no longer possible, he says. Well, I hope so. After the CDU leadership's decision, Otte announced that he would suspend the presidency of the so-called Values Union and all other party political activities out of respect for the office of the federal president and his dignity until after the Federal Assembly on February 13th. What a schmuck. Otte had repeatedly been held close to the AfD. Until January, he was chairman of the board of trustees of the AfD-affiliated Desiderius Erasmus Foundation. He should have been kicked out of the CDU a long time ago. In a statement by the Values Union on Sunday, it was said that the Federal Executive Board thanks Otte for averting further political damage from the Value Union with this step. Many members supported Otte's nomination, but the nomination by another party sends the wrong political signal. It's not about another party, it's about that right-wing extremist party especially. The so-called Union of Values, which claims to have around 4,000 members, sees itself as representing the particularly conservative current in the union, but is not an official party organization. Otte has no chance of becoming president. In a joint letter to Bundestag President Bärbel Baas, the party and faction leaders of the so-called traffic light partners, the Social Democrats, the Greens and the Liberals, as well as the leaders of the CDU and CSU, proposed Steinmeier for re-election. This means that he is assured of a large majority in the Federal Assembly on February 13th. And I'm glad that this is the case, because he was a foreign minister for the Social Democrats, but he's a good president. The CDU is catching up and drawing level with the SPD. If the state elections were held in North Rhine-Westphalia this Sunday, it could be a narrow election victory. That's where I'm sitting here, by the way. Around 3.5 months before the state elections here in North Rhine-Westphalia, the CDU and the SPD are tied according to an opinion poll. If there were elections this Sunday, both parties would get 28%, reported the WDR magazine West poll on Sunday about a survey by the opinion research institute Infratest DIMAP. Compared to the North Rhine-Westphalian trend 3 months earlier, the CDU was able to improve significantly by 6 percentage points, while the SPD lost 3 percentage points in approval. According to the survey, the SPD was clearly ahead of the CDU last October, but according to WDR information, the Greens follow as the third strongest force with an unchanged 17%. The Liberals, which co-govern in Düsseldorf, remain in double digits with 10%, but have lost 3 percentage points since October. The pollsters see the right-wing AfD slightly improved at 8%. The left would still not be represented in the state parliament with an unchanged 3%. According to the survey, the current government alliance of the CDU and the FDP in North Rhine-Westphalia would not have a majority. But even for black-green or red-green, it's just not enough, explained the WDR. Majorities would therefore have to be a coalition of CDU and SPD, and a tripartite alliance such as Jamaica with CDU, Greens and FDP, or a traffic light coalition of SPD, Greens and FDP. The Greens are disappointed with Boris Palmer's candidacy in the mayoral election in Tübingen. He had previously stated that he wanted to run as a non-party candidate. Palmer is controversial because of what people call racist remarks. Tübingen's Lord Mayor Boris Palmer, from the Greens still, wants to run for a third term in office independently of his own party. His city association is very disappointed with the decision. "We regret that he does not face the party's vote," said Mark Mausch, spokesman for the Tübingen Greens City Council, with a view to the planned primary election in which the Greens want to determine their mayor candidate. Palmer's step is not a sign of sovereignty, it's forcing the Greens to split up the power, they say. "He doesn't care about the party, he's already shown that," said Mausch. Tübingen's longtime mayor announced on his website on Sunday that he wanted to run as an independent candidate in the mayoral election in the fall. Palmer wrote on borispalmer.de that more than 800 eligible voters had signed an appeal to support him running for office again. A similarly large number of people provided the support with a monetary donation. The necessary budget for an election campaign came together in just 1 week. "I can't thank you enough for your encouragement. You made the difference. I will run for a third term," he posted. Palmer stressed that it was difficult for him to run without the support of the party, which he has belonged to for 25 years. "My political home is and will remain the Greens in Baden-Württemberg," he wrote. He wants to contribute to their success and that of Prime Minister Winfried Kretschmann's government, who's also from the Greens, by the way. "But in this election, I'm denied that for well-known reasons," Palmer emphasized, and he emphasized that mayoral elections are traditionally personal elections. Parties are not up for election. Palmer had previously announced that he no longer wanted to run as a Green Party candidate in his city's mayoral election in the fall, because of his possible expulsion from the party. He has been mayor of the university town since 2007, and in search of support for his possible election campaign as a non-party candidate, Palmer has collected 100,000 euros in the past few days. Relaxation has already been decided in other European countries, and the debate is also gaining momentum in Germany now, despite the increasing number of infection. Bavaria's Prime Minister Markus Söder considers easing to be possible as early as mid-February. The next round of federal state votes in February should still be awaited, says the CSU boss on German public television. "I think we just have to go step by step. If there is no hospital overload, freedoms must be returned to citizens. Omicron is something different than Delta, says Söder, with a view to the current and previously dominant corona variant. Therefore, despite the high number of infections, other measures are now necessary. For example, there could be more spectators at sports and cultural events, and there are also more opportunities in gastronomy and trade fairs, for example. Despite the further increase in the number of corona infections, the call for a concept for lifting restrictions is getting louder in politics in general. Federal Health Minister Karl Lauterbach said on Friday that the Omicron wave in Germany was well under control. However, the zenith has not yet been passed, as he says. The aim remains to minimize the consequences and to protect millions of unvaccinated older people. There could then be a loosening perspective for the second half of February or early March. In England, where there were relatively large freedoms to the Omicron wave, measures that were still in force had already been taken down. In Austria, the corona lockdown for unvaccinated people ended on Monday. In Denmark, people will no longer have to wear masks or show proof of vaccination from today. The Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen had said that the high willingness to vaccinate had turned out to be a super weapon, as she puts it. Omicron rarely causes serious illnesses and the number of hospital admissions is relatively low. In Denmark, more than 80% of the total population has been vaccinated twice. That's more than in Germany, by the way. 75.7% of people in this country received at least one dose of vaccination up to and including Friday. The federal government's goal of vaccinating 80% of the population against corona at least once by the end of January can hardly be achieved. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.